Welcome to another episode of our Barefoot Hearts podcast. And today I'm very happy to present to you Iulia. She's one of our founding members or founding families here, and mom of the little Xenia. And so, we wanted to have a little chat and introduce her. So thank you for joining us, Iulia. And
Thank you for having me.
And if you want to start sharing a bit about who you are, your background, and because it's very interesting for the rest of the discussion we're going to have. So, I'll just...
My name is Iulia. I was raised in Romania. I moved to England when I was 14. And I lived in England for about 12, 13 years. And then I married Jaime, who's also somewhere around here.
Yes, hiding.
About 6 years ago. And that's when we kind of traveled between Romania and Spain. And now we've decided to settle in Spain. While I was in Romania, I went to a state school. My mom is also a teacher, and it was a teacher back then when I was in school. And I think it's one of the reasons why we decided to come here to Barefoot was because we wanted something different for Xenia, something that would let her be a child and explore nature and be around other kids that would, let's say, have or families that would have similar values. I think that was really important to me. And being, my mom has been an amazing mother, but obviously she was raised during the communist periods, and she always asked a lot from us. So I remember while I was in school, we would go to school for, 6 to 8 hours a day, and then we would end up doing homeworks in the evenings. And I would, that was pretty much my childhood. And I'll probably, even on weekends, I'll be doing homeworks and things. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's just that sometimes we need to focus on other things, on relationships, socializing with other kids, be outside, really be a child, I guess, especially at such a young age. Because my daughter she's going to turn 3 in August. So based on that, and then when we moved to England, it was slightly more flexible. But still, I felt like I wanted something different for Xenia. And I think one of the main reasons why we've decided to come here was because they had a co-working space and we could be around her. And if Xenia ever needed us, we were there for her. Because nowadays, moms and dads, they are so busy when it comes to work. They're always out there for hours, and sometimes, especially if they have to commute, they don't really get to see their children. They would get to see them maybe for an hour or two, maybe 3 if they are lucky in the evenings. And sometimes you always end up doing something that's like cleaning or cooking, and you don't actually have not even a conversation, or don't even play with your child. And I remember talking to my husband, and I said, that's not what I want. I want something different for my child. I want to be around. I mean, that's why I've decided to be a mother, because I wanted to be around my daughter. And even if I'm working, I'm working part-time, I'm still here. So if she needs me, I'll go out. So if I hear her cry, I'll go out. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we decided to come here.
Yeah.
And I was a bit scared at first, because we've actually tried a state school about a year ago.
Okay.
And she was a year and a half old. And I remember I took her to this kindergarten. She was there for about 2 weeks, and I was not allowed to stay with her. I think on the first day I was allowed to stay with her for like half an hour, and then I had to leave. And I remember that I would come back, and she would have her eyes all puffy, because she would have cried for hours. And then I told him, I was like, I can't, like, all my instincts are telling me not. This is not. This is
Alert,
not
alert.
good. Alert, alert. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's telling me that this is not okay.
Mm.
And I think now, because I had other mothers that do take their kids to public state schools, and they've gone through that. And because sometimes you don't really have other options,
Yeah.
you do it, and then you kind of you push down your emotions, and then you get used to it,
Yeah.
and then you say, that's all I have. I mean, those are my options, and then that's it. So I think we are really lucky that we found this place, to be in nature, to be around our daughter, really be able to connect with the other parents, because you really get to know them and the other kids. Yeah.
That's definitely a big point, important for us as parents ourselves. Like, that's actually why we created this, where it's really hard to find, or we haven't found.
You found you created your own. Exactly.
Yeah, because it was like, even we never been like to state schools or things like that.
So you've never tried
like a formal school? No, we've been with Noam, our oldest, in forest schools and things like that. So we were always present, but over time we were always kind of, always tried to kind of slowly tell us to
move on,
because most parents were doing, like, they would accept, like, transition is much more respectful than any, like what you're saying, like staying half an hour just the first day and then not, and that's really harsh. I cannot imagine on a 1.5-year-old is very brutal. So that was definitely not the case. We could stay how many weeks we wanted or more, and slowly, but we didn't plan just to stay weeks and then go. We just
wanted to be
like,
around.
even if he would have been himself like confident, like, yeah, you just go, we want to be part of his education. We want to be just present. And in that case, it was mainly my husband going, and he was just working on his computer nearby. There was no co-working. He was just sitting on a bench, but still be there when needed, or just, yeah, be present. And that was for him as well, having moments in the day where he could just stop working and spend half an hour and participate and be there, that he could not have if he would go, I don't know how many hours in another school. And but slowly it was like, yeah, can you sit a bit further? Maybe can you sit in the car? Can you go away for an hour and come back? But we were very I think, especially because our oldest is a highly sensitive child. He was definitely not ready and still isn't. And again, that's not something we wanted, so we always refused, and they were like kind of accepting still, but we were the only ones that were still there. And it was actually also very painful to watch, because but again, also not judging or anything, because as you mentioned, most family don't have any choice. But there were, and again, in that case, it was much more respectful, but still, every morning, there were 5, 6, 7 kids crying, sometimes for hours, and they were really, really like taking care of them. Like, they would hold them, there would be, but it was very difficult. And in the meantime, they could not, of course, take care of the others. It was like requesting a lot of attention, which is totally normal, and they should give that. But that's also why at some point we stopped going, because our son grew older and there were only little ones. They were crying most of the time, so needed all the attention. So nothing was really happening, starting to be bored, having no friends of his age. So yeah, we started to look for something else. But then the more they grow, then you even have less options where you can stay as a parent. And so when we decided to create this place, that was for us so important, because we didn't want to have to push parents away. And we, not just about transition phase, and like, no matter their age, if they're young or old, that the parents can be there, just participate. And it's also nice for the other parents, for us, for the kids to see other adults and to have like to create this little community,
Exactly.
and because most people need to work, well, they still have the option to work but be close. So I think that was just important for us personally, and then we thought there's probably other families in the same, you know, thing. And so yeah, now we
I
did that.
think community is just so important when it comes to raising a child. So I think community is just a very massive, important thing in a child's life. There's an expression that says it takes a village to raise a child, and unfortunately, it's not like that anymore. You don't really have your family around, and now it's important to at least find families that share the same values to be able to help each other, or have someone to give you an advice, or be there if you need something. And I think that's what we have here with the other parents. If we have our worries, or if you want to have a conversation, or if we need help with anything, we know that we have their support. And hopefully maybe we'll see it in society. Maybe more families will see a change. I think the past few years we've seen a good shift, I guess, towards that, where you realize that you actually need your parents around, or you need your grandparents around. You don't need to do it on your own. You don't have to do it. Of course you can, but it's good to have other people around to help raising a child.
Exactly. With so many families now living far away from their families, we don't have that community. So recreating that with a group of friends, or where you go, where your child goes every day, is yeah, it's a very nice feeling, I feel. And for kids to be surrounded by, not just by other kids their age, you know,
Yeah,
by kids of
exactly.
all ages, by different adults, and I think it's really important. And I think that's social ability. Like, everybody's always scared about, you know, will my child be social enough, if you know he doesn't go to a normal school and things like that. But yeah, being social doesn't mean being social with the kids your age, and that's it. That's being
Exactly.
comfortable with any adult or
Be
kid or
able to
human.
express yourself in front of an
Exactly.
older child or an adult. Be able to have, even Xenia, I mean, she's only 3, but I can see that she's very, like, since she's been here, she's very open and outspoken.
Yeah.
And you can see that she's really, she has flourished. She has blossomed here. And I
That
think
was one of my next questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Blanca has been amazing, and we've really loved the way she's just allowed them to be themselves. Still put boundaries, because we all need boundaries in society, but just allow them to be themselves, and play around, and not constantly, oh no, don't do that, don't I don't know, don't say that, or keep correcting them constantly, because if you do that, I think you're gonna get blocked. You have a blockage, and then to remove that blockage is very, very hard. I mean, I feel like I've gone through that at some point in childhood or adolescence, where you're kept telling no, 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 and then you finish university, and then you go into work. And I remember my first day at work, it was just a complete panic, because I couldn't have a conversation with an adult, like someone professional in a work environment. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I doing this to myself?
It's torture.
Yeah. And obviously, I think everyone goes through that phase, but it shouldn't be such a shock to go into when you have to find a job, or even create your own job, because now there are so many opportunities out there. Not to be such a shock. It should be like a transition, slowly, to be able to be opinionative and really speak and be able to express yourself. And if you've got questions, ask them. I think that was one of my main fears. Like, I was scared to ask questions. Like, I would never ask questions in Romania because I was born after communism fell in '89. You don't ask questions.
Yeah.
You're given information and you just have to accept it. If you ask questions, then people will be like, why are you asking questions?
Mm.
You shouldn't ask questions.
Mm.
And I think that's because it's been in a communist period for so long, and there are still a lot of adults nowadays that still struggle with that. We are trying to like get out of that and be able to really express ourselves and communicate. And that's why I've decided to do this podcast as well, to help myself just be able to have a conversation in front of cameras.
Yes, it's not easy.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you always learn. Every day we learn something new.
yes,
So I think it's a process of just every day we hope we learn something new. I
yeah,
guess at least or at least we try to learn something new.
yeah. Be open to things and ideas, and I think what you mentioned about, you know, how you express yourself, it's like there's so much separation made between children and adults. They are different, of course, and doesn't mean you know, we should treat children totally like adults, but we should be more there, like to accompany them, to be a safe, secure, loving presence,
Exactly.
and not you know, adults that just like tell them what to do, tell them what's correct, what's not, because how the children brains work is that, as you said, if you express something or you express a feeling, even just especially at those ages, but you keep constantly being told that's wrong, you're not gonna question that person, especially not an adult.
Yeah.
You're gonna question it yourself. So you're gonna think, okay, so my feelings are wrong. I'm not supposed to be feeling that because we keep telling me, you know, that, you know, I should not feel that. You're not gonna hate your parents or your teachers or whoever. You're gonna start hating
Changing
yourself,
yourself.
and not you know, trusting yourself anymore. And that creates and hi, I'm one of them. Adults later that are not capable of knowing what they really like. Do I really want that, or they really like that? Because you don't know anymore, because you don't trust yourself anymore, because without external input, you cannot function, basically, you know.
Exactly.
And so it's not about just saying, okay, kids can do the same as adults and be the same and do whatever they want, but still having the same respect we're giving to adults, and not to like be superiors, inferiors. There's no hierarchy in that sense. We keep boundaries and things that are because, of course, according to their how they're evolving in their brain, they cannot see the big picture. They cannot see consequences. They cannot see like, you know, running over a street. You know, they cannot yet think that what might happen. And that's our role, to put a boundary and a limit there to protect them.
Yeah.
But that's more to protect them, more to help them, and or protect others, like boundaries to limits to protect like the interactions with others. But not just because we believe this is they should not do that. So they do this without even explaining and going against what they really feel inside.
I think it's really important to explain, and I struggled a bit with that with Xenia at the beginning when she started asking questions as to why, because she's been doing it for the past few months or for the past year, and then I have to like go back and you kind of rewire your brain to say, why do we?
Yeah, true. Why do I say no
Exactly,
to this?
why? How do I explain to a child
Yeah,
certain things, like why does the red have to be green when you cross, or red when, and then you have to stop? So you have to really know how to use your words and have a lot of patience
yes,
when you explain, and not be abrupt, not to say yes, this is it, you don't need to you know
to know more.
to question it.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing because you kind of go back when you're raising a child, you kind of go back to what you've experienced, and like I said, you just rewire your brain, and then you kind of relive through them.
Yeah.
but it's slightly different, a slightly different
true.
experience, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, I mean, in that case, for example, we know even as adults why we should not, cross when it's red. No, red. Sorry. But I mean, other things when I realized at some time that my sons would question something that for me seemed totally normal and logical, and then I would pause to think about, okay, how can I explain? And I'm like, there's actually no real like why true why
Why?
should we
Yes,
do it
yeah.
like that, why
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't, and actually having that conversation, that thoughts exchange as well with the kids is very good. They also need to know that adults are not perfect, that they can question things, that we don't maybe know everything. And yeah, and so that whole thing is so yeah, it's
It's a mind blowing.
and it's very interesting. Just to be there and to treat the children as with the same respect and like you would another person, basically, and to not just say, oh, they're children, they don't know, and that's it.
Or they
You
don't
actually,
understand.
yeah, or
They
they don't
understand a
understand.
lot. Sometimes they understand a lot more than we do.
Yes,
Because they are just a blank slate. They haven't. I'm 32, so I've lived and I've experienced a lot of things, and I've absorbed a lot of things. And now they've come into this world, and obviously they are exposed to a lot of things. So we have to be very careful. We have to put a lot of filters, let's say, and just let them live life the way they want, and not it put so much onto them based on what we've experienced, because I might see things in a way, but they see things differently.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see things differently, because I, as a parent, I've learned a lot of things since I've had her. And it's just such motherhood has been it's been, let's say, an awakening moment when you realize what your grandparents, what what our parents, especially our mother, has done for us, and then you get to live it, you get to experience it as well. And I think it's beautiful. And hopefully, I've tried to choose a place that in my very honest opinion, that allows my daughter to experience that freedom when it comes to education.
And I think that's very also courageous of you as a mom or as parents to get out of to think differently as well to what we've been taught to and raised, and look for something else, because it can be very daunting and very scary to do things differently as well.
It is a bit scary.
Yeah.
So
it is very courageous. Yeah.
In the summer, I remember last summer, because my mom actually helped with my mom moved back to Romania. When was it? A year and a half ago. Back, so she's gone back into teaching now after 15 years. So she has had a massive gap. So she's gone back, and she helped me for about a year with Xenia. We were in Romania for close to a year, and she's had an amazing time, because my mom, she's an amazing teacher. She's very good. And I remember in the summer, I was talking to my mom. I was like, what am I gonna do now? I need to find a place for her. And I was panicking. I would look on Facebook, see what options there are. And then my family close to us here in Spain, I was like, why don't you just take her to a kindergarten close to house? I was like, I don't want to take her to a kindergarten close to house just because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't want to be. I think that was one of my how do I explain? I wouldn't say an argument, but it's just something that conversations that I've had with adults in our family, to say, look, this is a decision that I've made for my family, and even if I have to drive for 40 or 50 minutes to come here, it is a sacrifice. But I think in the long term, it's gonna be amazing for my daughter, because I know I've made the right decision, rather than me taking her to the closest kindergarten just because it's comfortable for me as a parent. Because when you decide to have a child, you know that you're gonna have to sacrifice certain things. You're not it might sound painful, you're not first anymore, you're not a priority anymore. You come second or third. And some parents realize that later, and I think fathers struggle a bit with that. Mothers, I think it's a shock, I think, on the first day. It is. And I think that's the main thing. It's been a sacrifice for us, and that's why we've decided to choose a house here, because we want to be closer, because we love it. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. But yeah, I really would love to talk a bit more about Xenia, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm always so like, she's the most little one we have, like the
little bubble.
She's the cutest, and I'm always so impressed because she's so little, but she's so like you said, she's comfortable talking to any adult. Like just before she was playing with her toys and feeding her toys strawberries, and the kitchen chef was cooking in the kitchen, and she started talking to him. I saw, and but he didn't hear her, and I was waiting to see, and then she was like, Adam, Adam, like to see a little girl like that from a distance, and then he turned and she was explaining, look, I'm giving the dinosaurs strawberries to eat, and then she had that interaction. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And he's not joined that she didn't join for so long, so and she doesn't have the same interaction that she would have with Blanca, that's all the time with her.
Yeah.
So you would think
should be a bit more shy too.
No, and then as well, like with the other kids, like she's perfectly integrated in the group of no matter the ages. She's playing with all of them, and she's also very kind of independent on some things. For example, if the kids are playing something and she doesn't want to, she won't. She will just do what she wants, and that's amazing. At that age, to be able to because
say, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and it's very normal for kids, of course, to do it because others do it and be influenced and things. But for to say just no, I'll just continue to do my thing and sitting close to you and being with everyone, but doing your own thing, and or knowing or asking when she wants something or needs something, putting limits, saying no. Yeah, it's amazing.
She's amazing. She's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna say that because she's my daughter.
No, it really is. And again, it's so little, it's even more. So yeah, I don't know if you how you see things, and if you saw any change in her, or any even like anecdotal things, that made you realize. And sometimes it might be, like you said before, hard because she might now, put more limits to you, or say no, or have more of her own, thing, or with other, which is a good thing. But of course, as a you're like, oh, okay, and now we have to handle that situation, But yeah, so I just wanted to hear a bit about you.
She knows how to. I don't know. I haven't really done it consciously. Maybe I haven't realized that I've done certain things, but she's definitely she knows when she doesn't want something. Like you can't force her, and I've never tried to force her to do anything if she doesn't want it. And she knows when to say no, I don't want that I don't want to go there, or I don't want to eat that, and she's like, Blanca has been really amazing, and I've obviously observed a lot as well, that she allows them to say, yeah, if she said no, then we have to respect that. If she said yes, then we have to respect what she said. And it's just really sweet to see how she's grown, because she's been here for how many months now? Well, it's gonna be a year
almost
in September, October. So it's been quite a bit of time, and you could see that she speaks more. She's more outspoken, and she obviously she is shy every now and again when she doesn't know someone. but she's very curious, and I think it's really important for kids to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, when she was interacting with Adam, she was not afraid to ask an adult a question.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important. Thanks
Yeah.
for thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, there are a lot of little moments like that, and we're trying to write them down every day because it just, yeah. And we can also see, you know, the progress, how they're growing, how they feel more comfortable, the connection with the other kids, and also she's quite, maybe because she feels that security that, you know, there's always you or your husband here, although you're working, and some days she doesn't even ask once for you, but I think it's because she feels safe. She knows you are here.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's also very mature, kind of, you know, to be like, you know.
She never. Only if when I hear if she cries, which doesn't happen very often, I hear her and then I go and I pick her up. And then I stay with her for a few minutes, and then she's like, "Oh, I want to play now," and then she's done.
And she's done. Thank you for the emotional support. You know,
exactly.
you can go. But yeah,
Exactly.
and usually that happens when she's been hurt or something like. Or of course, there have been days where mornings have been more difficult, or if she's been sick or something. That's totally normal. But she's been very quickly.
The mornings have been slightly more difficult.
Yeah.
But then I stay with her. That's what I've started doing this week, because she's been slightly more sensitive this week. I think she's going to a growth spurt.
Yeah.
So I've decided to stay with her for 5-10 minutes, and then she slightly, she starts playing around with the other children, and then I can go back into the working space. And she knows that I'm here.
Yeah.
And probably she would have known that I had to leave. It would have probably been slightly different.
Yeah.
But she knows that she can always come and say, "Hi, mommy."
Exactly. Sometimes just watching at the
"Hi,
window.
mommy." Yeah.
Or she has her little friend that wants to be more with you than her coming and let's go and see your dad and let's go see your mom.
Exactly.
And trying to check on you. Yeah. But and also like in terms of movement and physical capacities and things, she's also been much more, like, again, she's so little and the land is rough. You know, there's stones they're going down and up and swings and things that are not necessarily easy, and she's also
learned
made
a lot.
quite a big progress, if you can say so, in that, which is also very interesting because I think
learned to swing. When was it? A few months, like before she would be scared to sit on a normal swing, and now she sits on a very thin swing. And I was like, how? Because obviously you know how, but it's been such a quick phase, I guess. And how can you do that now? You were so tiny a few months ago, and now you've seen like you've grown, like you've really, I feel like she's grown a lot. She's learned a lot of things. And you can see that. Like one of the mothers a few days ago, she mentioned that her son, I think, had a bit of a conflict with Xenia, and my daughter would say no, and then she was like, "No, don't talk to me."
Yes.
And she's not even 3, and it's really sweet to see that she really knows to put up boundaries. And I haven't really taught her, like I haven't done something on purpose to say no, you have to. So it just comes out naturally, I think. And I think it's because she's allowed to express her own in her own ways. Let's say.
And that it's like there's kind of a what we always try to do, a follow through on that, meaning you know, telling the other side, have you heard what she said? She said no. Look at her face. Look at it means no. You have to stop.
Read emotions, expressions.
To support that decision in that moment. If the other child struggles to respect that, which is also happening and normal, and so, well, she feels like listened, respected, and then supported, and then she also sees the consequence, which is, well, that is stopping, is how I feel uncomfortable, that stopped, you know. And sometimes, especially at those ages, they don't always express it. So that's also one part of our work, is like to observe and know the kids. And sometimes we ourselves would ask, you know, are you sure you're okay with that? Are you sure you're comfortable with that? In that
So
moment, they kind of think
important.
about it, and then, oh no, actually not. And then, you know, because sometimes they can, you know, be a bit
You repress, like,
shy,
sometimes.
or especially if it's in a new situation or someone new or older kids or something, they might not always think about speaking up. Just okay, they know and they feel, oh, I don't like it, but they won't necessarily express it. So that's also, as adults, you know, having to see that and have, you know, like, I can see you're not liking it, you know, if you can say no if you don't like it, and then they do, and that's just, yeah, the kids can feel,
because it's really important that you go into adolescence and adulthood and be able to say no or question things. It's so important. You don't just do what you're told by someone else, even if when it comes, because I'm not talking about job now, even when you're in a relationship. I had quite a few friends that were in relationships that were not good to them, and they couldn't, I think they couldn't really read, because you're raised in a way that you kind of repress your emotions, and you start, when you should see things, you don't see signals. And I think it's important to say, look, this is how I feel, and or this is how I want to do things, or this is not okay. I think we should move on from this. And obviously, whatever they experience now, that's how
exactly,
that's how it's gonna
shapes their
reflect into
brain, shapes
adulthood.
everything, because even if you can sometimes feel it that it's not right, you do question yourself. Like was I mentioning before, you would, especially as a kid, you will question yourself first before you question anybody else. And if you learn that behavior, basically, or that way of functioning, that what you feel or what you might be wrong, then you will always have that doubt. And so when something happens, like when you see in relationships, and you know you're really feeling unwell, you will still think, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe, you know, it's me. I just had a bad day. Maybe,
exactly.
or like trying to find a reason and not really just, you know, being able to speak up and say, oh, that doesn't feel good right now. Let's, you know, talk about that or whatever. And I think a lot of adults are like this. A lot of adults are like that.
Or when you're in a job position, or a lot of things, like, let's say you've enjoyed your job for 2, 3, 4 years, and then something has changed. You shouldn't be afraid to say, look, I think I need to move on. Not stick around because of continuity, because you've been there, so you have to continue on because of that. And just say, look, just say, I think I'm done here. I need to move on to something else. And be able to go through that process is really important.
We all go through phases in our lives, and
exactly.
And being kind with ourselves, and accepting the changes, and
exactly.
Listening to yourself, respecting yourself and others, of course. But like, I mean, usually we don't respect and listen to ourselves. So
we have a lot of instincts that we don't really listen to.
No,
and we should be more aware of what does our soul and brain say, because they are connected. Like, really listening to how our body reacts to certain things. I think that's really, really important.
Especially as mothers, we are taught, like, not to listen to your instincts, but actually is so your instincts are so right, like on so many topics, like, you know, you should let your kid cry, and you should not react immediately, because otherwise he'll get used to that, and you know, let him sleep alone, he'll get used to that. Or, you know, all these things, like where your body is screaming inside and saying,
this
no,
is
it's not right. And you're like, yeah, but everybody does that. And what if it's true, if I just comfort every time, then I'm never gonna, you know, do that and that. And so there's a lot of unlearning to do, and well, actually more listening, to your instincts, and even if it goes against what you've been taught or against mainstream, it's like your instinct. And as a mother, I think that's a gift we have when we have children, to have those instincts. And because we were mentioning before the swing and things like that, that's also something I realized, is that sometimes we are kind of overprotecting. But actually, if you don't do it from an anxious point of view, or overwhelmed nervous system, you do it from an instinct, it's probably correct. And then one day you realize that this time you let your child do this
because he had a bit more
I think I realize that a lot. Like, why now I feel comfortable with that? There might not have been a lot of time that passed, but I think it's like it goes in both senses. On one point, your body, everything feels that now your child can manage that,
is ready,
because there's been and your child also kind of transmit that they are now ready, and it's just in that moment you feel, okay, now he's ready to, like, it's more unconscious, let's say.
Exactly.
And then you go back on that, you let more freedom, let's say. And if you really do it from your instinct, listening from your instinct, knowing your children, it actually works very well, and they evolve very safely. And I think so that's why it's so important to listen to ourselves, and to observe, and to and to follow that.
Exactly. And it's been I think I don't think I'm a very overprotective mother. I think I've always allowed her to play with things, or if she wanted to put something in her mouth, as long as it was not something that she shouldn't be putting in her mouth.
Yes.
I've allowed her because I wanted to because if I say, oh, don't put that into your mouth because it's not good, how is she going to know that is not actually food?
Yeah.
That if she took a stone and she put it in her mouth, obviously, as long as she was not tiny, and if she's not 6 months old, I would not allow her to do that because it's dangerous. But if she does it when she's older, she experiences things, she learns, and then she's not going to do it. But if I keep telling her, no, don't put that in your mouth, don't put that in your mouth, and then she does it when I'm not there.
Exactly.
Because that can happen.
Yeah.
And then let's say she chokes and I'm not there, obviously that causes a lot of other dramas. And I think just allowing them and just being there and observing, and if you need to interact, good. But if you don't, just step aside and let them experience nature. Let them
exactly. It's very it's so important. And you are around, and you're like, you might be nervous and observing, but in the moment, and ready to interact if you need to. But giving that little space and is so important, because the more you're going to say no there, the more they're going to want to do it actually first.
Yeah, it is.
And so they won't probably do it in a safe way. And so it just like it can be scary. To be a mom, it is probably a lot all the time.
Adolescence will be an interesting phase.
That's gonna be another one. I don't. Every stage has its, like, when you come out from the very baby stage, you're like, oh, cool, now, okay, I made it through that. He survived the first year. He's still alive. That's the main thing, And then when they start exploring and touch everything, like, oh my god! And then it's more and more. It's different. It's very different.
I think it gets interesting with age.
more interesting.
More challenging. Yeah.
Probably. But it's a journey. It's an amazing one.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's amazing to be able to experience motherhood and be allowed to experience it.
Yes, it definitely is. Yeah, I think it's a nice way to end it here, unless you wanted to.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I love being here. I love working here, being in nature.
Yes.
Jaime enjoys it as well. You can't really hear me now.
We'll get him on the podcast one day. You'll see yours, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready.
We can have a podcast in Spanish with him.
Or we can try.
Maybe we can try and persuade him. But thank you so much for
Thanks
having
to
me.
you. It was very nice to have that chat, and yeah, we love having you guys here, and especially Xenia.
Of course.
But no, it's amazing. So thank you for your trust, because it requires a lot of trust to bring your child somewhere, and yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
for watching.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for watching. Bye-bye.